Good morning, Wabash. Speaking today at Pioneer Chapel will be President Scott Feller with his talk titled, Let's Build Something Together. Dr. Scott E. Feller is the 17th president of Wabash College and holds the title of Professor of Chemistry. He arrived at Wabash in 1998 as a chemistry professor and has served in various capacities throughout his career, including department chair, division chair, and dean of the college. As a teacher, President Feller received the McLean-McTurnan-Arnold Excellence in Teaching Award in 2009. He is also a nationally recognized researcher and has earned 10 grants from the National Science Foundation, National Institutes of Health, and the Food and Drug Administration. President Feller completed Wabash's historic Giant Steps campaign, helping to raise more than $250 million. As president, he has also helped Wabash secure its largest ever grant, $25 million from the Lilly Endowment Incorporated. He is a graduate of Willamette University in Oregon.
Try again. What'd I tell you?
Willamette, damn it. Willamette University in Oregon, and earned his PhD in physical chemistry from the University of California at Davis. President Feller and his wife, Wendy, have 2 children, Amanda and Jake, and they own a farm in rural Montgomery County. Let's give a warm welcome to President Feller.
Thank you. Good morning, Wabash. All right, let's be clear. It's Willamette, damn it. All right? I want to thank the Sphinx Club for inviting me to speak today. I'm grateful for the work the club does in providing this venue to share ideas, opinions, and experiences within our community. I've been here a while. I've been here long enough to know a time when there were no chapel talks. Right? It's easy to think that everything we call a tradition has been around since 1832. The truth is, things come, things go, things evolve. I remember when the chapel talks were reinvigorated by a group of students led by some Sphinx Club members. I will admit, I had my doubts about the long-term sustainability. I feared the students might lose interest, or the students who pushed it would graduate, but it's worked out beautifully, and the chapel talks are stronger than ever, in my opinion. I think it's a great example of the way that our traditions can evolve. Traditions can pause, they can be resurrected. It's also good to remember maintaining traditions is a lot of work. For that, I'm grateful to the club. In my mind, chapel talks are especially important at this moment in time. Over the past couple of years, I've fielded a lot of questions from alumni, from parents, from members of our local community who are concerned that the free exchange of ideas on college campuses has been lost. Let me admit, these are not my favorite conversations. These conversations can go in a lot of different directions, but there are 2 things I always try to bring up in those conversations, including chapel talks. I explain to people this is a student-driven program that brings diverse voices to the center of our campus, and I always emphasize I have no role in the selection of the speakers. When I tell people I don't know who's speaking in chapel until I read the email announcement, it throws them off balance. It shakes the things that they thought surely were true. I get a lot of surprised looks. I'm grateful to the club for helping me with that. The second element on campus discourse that I always mention is the bachelor. Just as I'm grateful to the Sphinx Club for taking chapel talks seriously, I'm deeply indebted to the guys who put out a true student newspaper each and every week. And just like the chapel talks, I don't know what will be printed until I pick up a copy on Friday morning. The Bachelor regularly contains disagreement, sometimes within a given issue, sometimes on a topic that continues for weeks. Now, before I leave this point on free expression, let me be clear. I'm not saying nice things about The Bachelor and about the Sphinx Club because I agree with everything that gets said, all right? There are plenty of things that I hear in the chapel or I read about in The Bachelor that I disagree with, all right? That's okay. Disagreement is uncomfortable, to be sure. But our media, and our social media especially, give us more than enough opportunities to surround ourselves with voices we agree with. Spending a few minutes reading The Bachelor, spending a half hour in this chapel, I think these are valuable for us. And I'm glad we have these spaces on our campus, and there are many beyond the two that I've mentioned that let us leave our bubbles of conformity for more authentic conversation, if even for a short time. So when alumni ask me if what they've read in the newspapers is true at Wabash, that students aren't given voices for their ideas and opinions, I can confidently tell them that Wabash embraces free expression, and I can remind them the president has no control over what's printed in The Bachelor or what's said in this sacred space. I guess today is the exception. I get to determine what's said in our chapel. So a few years ago, I accompanied Professor Derek Nelson and his colleague Libby Manning on a study trip to South Africa with the Wabash Pastoral Leadership Program. It was an amazing experience. I toured Robben Island with one of Nelson Mandela's cellmates. I went to a small birthday celebration for Bishop Desmond Tutu one morning. But what I remember most about the week in South Africa was the advice that Dr. Nelson gave us at the beginning. The reminder that we don't learn from our experiences as much as we learn from our reflections on those experiences. So this summer, I finished my 5th year as president, so I tried to spend more time in reflection. I understand 5 years might not sound like that much to you, but some of those were dog years, let me tell you. Most recent data, 55% of college and university presidents right now have served less than 5 years. So last year, I got ahead of the median, and now I'm becoming an old hand at this. Many of you know that Wendy and I spend much of the month of July in our home state of Oregon. The hiking there is exceptional. The mountains are high and the humidity is low, giving us opportunities to disconnect from technology and reflect on a lot of things. Time away from campus also gives me a chance to read some good books. Luckily, the small town where we stay has my absolute favorite independent bookstore. If you want to learn about it, Wendy told me just recently, you're not too young to remember the television show The Office, right? With Dwight Schrute. So Dwight was played by an actor named Rainn Wilson. Turns out Rainn spends some time in our little town in Oregon, and his Instagram earlier this week had a bunch of pictures from the bookstore where I go to. I haven't crossed paths with him yet, though I'm very jealous because my son saw him at the coffee shop on Sunday. So for me, reading for pleasure is intimately connected with time to reflect and to reflect on life. I read almost exclusively nonfiction this summer, mostly memoirs. I find that studying the way other people reflect on their lives is a great way for me to examine what's going on with my own. One of the books I read this summer got me reflecting on building things. The title of the book is Cabin: Off-the-Grid Adventures with a Clueless Craftsman. And it turned out during most weekends this last July, I was actually building something. maybe more precisely, rebuilding something, a large barn and warehouse on our farm in the Willamette Valley of Oregon. I have a long history of building things, though I still seem to lack expertise, which is probably why I so enjoyed the memoir of someone who identifies as a clueless craftsman. One of the earliest memories I have, maybe the earliest memory I have, I was probably 3 or 4 years old. And I have this memory of my father and my grandfather and my oldest cousin building a barn on our farm in Oregon. Later, when I was in high school, my father and I built a second barn on that property over the course of a year or two. Later, when my son Jake was in high school, he and I built a substantial addition to our barn here in Indiana, just north of Crawfordsville. And then this summer, Jake's 2 sons helped us on this Oregon barn project. So if you're keeping track, it's 5 generations of my family, from my grandfather to my grandsons, connected by this strange activity. The cabin book, it helped me think more deeply about why building these barns has meant so much to me. A book review summarizes the Clueless Craftsman book this way: they tear things up, they get things wrong, they learn. They tear things up, they get things wrong, they learn. I don't think enough things in life give us that opportunity. Or maybe it's more accurate to say we too infrequently embrace those opportunities when they present themselves. The clueless craftsman, whose day job was as a copy editor at a digital marketing firm, he articulates beautifully the differences between working with words and ideas and working with wood and nails. He also points out that those of us working in the knowledge economy can easily spend our hours outside of work consumed by the same activities of the digital world that define our workplaces. We never get away from screens. When he was writing of the time before he began this cabin project, the author said, "All too often, an average evening at home would consist of little more than sitting on the couch, phone in hand, letting my attention lazily ping-pong between Twitter and Instagram and YouTube and whatever happened to be on TV." That's a good thing to reflect on and think about right now. Now, after hearing this, perhaps some of you are wondering if you're going to see me over at the community center building site pouring concrete or framing in windows. You will not. I bring much more enthusiasm and appreciation for the construction work than expertise. And there is a Wabash story, perhaps true, about former President Frank Sparks and the construction of the campus center back in the 1950s. For those new to Wabash, we just spent the summer demolishing what for 70 years was known as the Frank Hughes Sparks Center. Anyway, back to President Sparks. Apparently, he was touring the building site. I think it looked a lot like it does today, a big hole in the ground. And he tumbled down into the hole that had been excavated for the foundation and the basement. It's unclear what his exact injuries were, perhaps a broken hip, but he was reportedly away from campus for many months. And it said he never really walked that well again. Needless to say, I will not put myself in a position to tumble down into the hole from which our new community center will soon rise. I am, however, working to build some other things at Wabash College. Coming out of the pandemic, I identified 3 things I thought we really urgently needed to build. The first was our enrollment, and we've made significant progress in shoring up our recruiting. I enthusiastically rang in 270 young men last Saturday in this space. It should put our overall enrollment to something over 900 students this fall, likely to be the second highest in the history of Wabash College. The second priority I set was to embrace our philanthropic tradition, do some important things like wrapping up the Giant Steps campaign, continue to strengthen the annual fund, and exercise some discipline within our spending. That was the work to rebuild our endowment. And we've made incredible strides. The endowment today sits at a record somewhere around $450 million. All right? So we've built some things. By the way, we still have plenty of work to do on all of that. But the final priority that I really want to focus on today could be described as building community. This is the one I spent a lot of time thinking about this summer. Admittedly, it doesn't have easily identified measures of progress like the census day enrollment or the end of the fiscal year endowment value. Compared to enrollment and endowment performance, progress in building community is more complicated. It's probably more uneven as well. I suspect this is because building community is a true communal job. We all have to work together. It depends on the actions of many more people. And it has to be done day in and day out. While our community at the college may engage in philanthropy meaningfully on the day of giving, and the success of Scarlet Honor Weekend requires that we all pitch in for enrollment, building community is the work that happens 365 days a year, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I also feel building community isn't something that can be done with a top-down approach. It's got to be a grassroots effort. And we can't call in experts to help us get it done. It can't be outsourced to specialists. That's one reason I found inspiration in the story of the clueless craftsman building his cabin. It's a little counterintuitive in this day and age to think of a guy with no skills and really no tools constructing a beautiful dwelling in the woods. In our world today, if you want to put up a building, you employ a contractor who will in turn employ a team of building specialists, carpenters, plumbers, electricians, painters, etc. Now, obviously, there are good reasons to hire a building contractor. Nobody at Wabash College has the know-how to build the new community center. And actually, I don't think any one person at Wilhelm Construction, our general contractor, has that know-how. A project of that scale requires a team of experts, cumulative expertise in construction that would exceed many lifetimes of any one individual. My worry is that because specialization and outsourcing make sense for many things in the modern world, we easily can fall into the trap of thinking everything should be outsourced to specialists. Let me take an example from my own life. Some of you know, I've mentioned it before, Wendy and I have a farm just outside of Crawfordsville. The farm brings us great joy. It's a place for us that we share with friends and family, provides an opportunity for physical activity, introduces us to new people. It's a connection to our family and our heritage. All of these are important human activities. But people struggle to understand why we do this, why we have a farm. And I understand there's an argument that says the time I spend on the farm comes at the cost of economic opportunity. You know, that the time I spend farming could be devoted to my professional life. Earn a better salary, get a better job. I understand that argument. Until recently, I just kind of let it blow by me and thought, well, you know, maybe that's for other people. It's just not for me. Then a couple of months ago, I read a thread on Twitter where someone was arguing that cooking a meal at home was a bad decision, that the time spent shopping, preparing meals, cleaning up, that should be redirected to your work, right? Or at the very least to your side hustle. Meals should be outsourced to restaurants for production and to DoorDash for delivery. For some reason, that post just crossed a line with me. I worry that technology is enabling a level of specialization in human activity that is not to our benefit. Now, admittedly, I have spent most of my adult life at liberal arts colleges. So, of course, it's natural for me to be concerned about specializations. But this summer, I realized my concerns are about much more than a college curriculum and what we study. At Wabash, part of our mission is to help students learn to live humanely. I used to think of the living humanely part of the mission mostly in terms of, well, we should treat each other well, okay? And that's important. Let me be clear. I'm pro treating people well. But lately, I think we need to also reflect more broadly on what it means to live humanely, on what it means to be human. I think there are basic aspects of what it means to live, to be human, that we're in danger of outsourcing to others. I'm talking about things as basic as cooking and eating together, things like being in the physical presence of others. The pandemic offered us an alternative, and I think too many of us have not returned to valuing the presence of others. Now, I hope that each of you, having chosen a residential liberal arts college, has a greater than average appreciation for the importance of living humanely and building community together. It's also easy in this moment of hyperpolarization to think that lack of community is the fault of others, to applaud the virtues in us and those who think like us. But I feel strongly that if we're going to build a stronger community at Wabash, it needs to lead with introspection, not calling each other out. Building a community starts with a foundation of living humanely. I really think we need to look at some basic stuff, sitting down for meals with each other, hanging out together, playing cards, going for walks, forming friendships. Let me be clear, taking the first step is not equivalent to taking the last step. It doesn't mean this is all we need to do. To build community, we certainly need to learn how we're different. That's especially important in a pluralistic community like Wabash College. But I think that learning has to be built on an appreciation for those things we share in common. And I think it's getting too easy to skip over the first step. I hope it's easy at Wabash to go against that trend. Wabash provides virtually unlimited opportunities for communal living. Spending an evening at the theater production or cheering on a team, working on a CIBE project with classmates, or volunteering in the Crawfordsville community. Last year, we started a fantastic program we're calling Community Dinners, organized by Tristan Myers and Jill Lamberton. We had one last night. I see some familiar faces. It was fantastic. It was an opportunity to sit together, to eat together, to learn from each other what's important, what we're excited about, what we're scared about. When you're invited to go, take up that opportunity. These are things you definitely need to do. But also ask yourself if you're making the small choices that encourage human connectedness and community. even if those choices can't be justified by the metrics of success that sometimes society emphasizes. Think twice before you grab the to-go box from the dining room. Look for a person to interact with rather than turning your attention to a device. Take an hour to attend a lecture or a concert. Put the home games on your Outlook calendar. Never discount the enormous cumulative effect of these small changes as we build and strengthen our community together. To close, I want to mention two people at Wabash who I consider to be master craftsmen. Maybe give you a small homework assignment to watch a couple of videos. The first is Professor of Religion, Derek Nelson. He is an amazing cabin and furniture builder. A Google search of his evergreen cabin project will lead you to a video that will absolutely blow you away. His mastery as a craftsman inspires me, a somewhat clueless craftsman, to try things, make mistakes, get a little better each time. Most important, he inspires me to focus on the joy in my achievements rather than my own shortcomings. We also have some master community builders at Wabash College. The freshmen here today may have already met someone during the last few days who demonstrated a commitment to making connections and helping others feel that they belong here. When I was thinking about our master community builders, I couldn't help but think of one particular person who kept appearing in my mind. That was Coach Clyde Morgan. When it comes to community building, he is a master craftsman that I look up to. You should all look up his office hours video on the college YouTube. It'll give you ideas on how to build community in small and large steps. And one of the things I've always appreciated from Coach Morgan is, as easy as he sometimes makes it look to build community, he will tell you exactly how hard it is. Check out his video. I want to leave you with one last lesson I took from the Clueless Craftsman book. The book draws you in with these disarming stories that emphasize how little the author had in terms of resources to tackle a big challenge. So you could read this book and conclude that the guy was crazy, the cabin project was a long shot, and his success was mostly luck. You can certainly learn from the book, if you wanted, that you should leave the buildings to the professionals. A lot of stuff goes wrong. But I'd like to think that by engaging with this text and reflecting on its message, I took away something very different. I came away reminded it's okay to try something when you aren't the expert, that getting better can be celebrated even when you're far from perfection, and that learning is best done as a communal activity. The clueless craftsman didn't even have a cordless drill when he began this project. But what did he have? Curiosity, a desire to make a change, and friends to help him at every step of the way. Everybody in this room has those things. Everybody in this room can build something. Let me leave you with one last piece of advice. This is a late addition to my chapel talk. Last week, I was talking with our newest Wabash College trustee, Munwar Ali. He shared that the day before he came down to Crawfordsville, he dropped his son off at Loyola University in Chicago for his first year at college. Before he left, he handed his son a package and told him this was the most important thing he needed for his room. The son opened up the package. It was a doorstop. Munwar told him, the thing you need is to leave your door open. That's how you'll meet people. That's how you'll make connection. That's how you will invite others into communities. So step out, get involved. When you're back in your room, prop the door open. Let others know they can join you as we build our community, one small gesture at a time, together. Thank you.
A few final announcements. At 5 o'clock tomorrow, our soccer team faces Franklin at home. On Saturday, Student Life is hosting back-to-bash from 4 to 8. Come out and see what all at Wabash has to offer. For those interested in applying for the Sphinx Club this semester, stick around once this talk is over for a Q&A session. And those interested in the Glee Club, please see the QR code and join this fantastic group. Thank you all for attending. Now will you all please rise and join the Wabash College Glee Club in singing Old Wabash.